They always assumed I wouldn't notice things. But I remember the sound the old lock used to make two soft clicks and a drag. That morning it clicked once, then nothing. I tried again. My fingers paused over the keypad. They'd changed the code. I stood outside the gate with the grocery bag cutting into my wrist. There were 4 pears inside. Jason liked pears. He said they felt cleaner than apples. I used to pack them for him in high school, always peeled wrapped in wax paper. The wood plaque by the gate once read, "The Holloway House." Now it read, "The Hale Family Estate." My name wasn't there, not even in small print. I tried calling Jason. No answer. I waited a minute, then called again. This time someone else picked up. "Oh, I thought Jason told you." A pause. I said nothing. "We took over the property. It's more manageable this way." I looked through the bars at the fig tree I planted with James. Still there. Still leaning. She didn't ask if I was all right. "It's not personal, Sandra. It's just cleaner. For taxes and things." Something inside the house moved. Curtains. A child's voice. "Did you need anything else?" I hung up. The grocery bag ripped on the way to the car. 1 pear rolled into the street. I didn't chase it. The others I left on the passenger seat bruised. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my old laptop. The screen flickered once before showing the home page of the county records office. My hands weren't steady, but steady enough. 2 signatures appeared on the property transfer document, Jason Hale and Sandra Hale. Except I never signed it. The date was 1 month after James died. The notary listed was Colleen Hale. Her name again. Colleen, the same woman who once told me at Thanksgiving, "Some people know how to fade gracefully. You might consider it." She was listed as the realtor, too. The house was already being shown under her private agency, all documents cleared. 0 encumbrance. I called the agency. Interested in the listing on Seaside Avenue, a young woman chirped, "Yes. Great. It's been cleaned out, staged, and legally reassigned. No lien, no disputes. Move-in ready. Is the owner available? It's held under Hale Family Trust, represented by Colleen Hale." I didn't answer. She filled the silence. "There's a lot of interest. Gorgeous sunset views. Retired couple from Nevada already asked for a second showing." I closed the laptop. In the drawer beside the sink was a folder marked James, Originals. Inside the will, his letters are joint ownership documents. My name printed alongside his in thick ink. I reached for my wedding ring. It was still on the counter from 2 nights ago. I hadn't worn it lately. The band was thin now, smoothed by time. A faint scratch on the inside, barely noticeable unless you knew where to look. He'd etched our initials with a safety pin the day we married. We couldn't afford engraving. I pressed the ring into my palm until the edges left a mark. That mark faded in less than a minute. I opened the mailbox the next morning. Bills, a church flyer, and a glossy postcard. Dream coastal living, the Hale Estate now. Showing a picture of the patio. My old patio. The hydrangeas were gone. So was the wind chime James hung for me after my first surgery. He said I needed something that would sing even when I couldn't. The back of the postcard had no return address, just a number to call for showings. I set it beside the bowl of keys that no longer opened anything that belonged to me. Later that week, I met Jason at his office. I didn't tell him I was coming. "Mom, what are you doing here? I saw the listing." He leaned against his desk. "It's not what you think. You forged my name. No, you gave us power of attorney. I didn't." "You did, Mom, at the hospital, right after Dad passed. You signed the paper. You had me sign it while I was still sedated. You were grieving. We helped." He opened a drawer and pulled out a copy of the document. My signature. Slanted, almost illegible. Brittany said it was the best way to simplify things. She always says that. She's smart, organized. She's not kind. He looked at me the way one looks at something inconvenient. Not cruel, just in the way. Look, it's done. There's no reason to dwell on it. You still have the apartment. You're not on the street. No, just off the records. On my way out, the receptionist stopped me. Mrs. Hale. Yes, Jason said you might be dropping by. He left this envelope. Inside a check. $2,500. Memo line, caretaking expenses. I tore it in half before I reached the elevator. Not dramatically, just clean down the middle. Back at my apartment, I opened the top drawer of the nightstand. Tucked behind the receipts and clipped coupons was a photo, me, Jason, and James, at the beach house. We were holding a kite. Jason's cheeks were sunburned. He looked happy. Not the way he does now. I flipped the photo over, nothing written. I made tea. Not to calm down, just to feel the weight of the mug. It had a chip near the rim, shaped like a half moon. I ran my finger over it until the water cooled. At some point, I had become a story they no longer needed to tell. A shadow cast by someone else's spotlight. And yet here I was, breathing, staring at a door that no longer bore my name. They hadn't killed me, just filed me away. I took the torn check and slipped it between the pages of a recipe book I hadn't opened in years. On page 97, next to the notes for my husband's favorite chili, I pressed it flat and closed the book. There was nothing left to say. There's a difference between being quiet and being erased. I didn't realize when one turned into the other. I brought her orchids. White, double-stemmed with a black ceramic pot. The kind that only blooms once a year unless coaxed. She had just opened her firm, then something about sustainable interiors. I waited until the end of the ribbon cutting to give them, so I wouldn't interrupt the photo. She handed them to the receptionist without a glance. I don't really do live plants. They stress me out. No thank you, not even eye contact. I stood next to the platter of mini quiches, unsure whether to take one. Colleen walked by, sipped her champagne, and gave me a look. Plastic orchids last longer, less mess. That was all she said. But I didn't touch the quiches after that. Later, when Brittany's dress zipper split at the fitting 3 weeks before the wedding, I took the gown home in a garment bag. I stitched the back by hand using a loop technique my mother taught me when I was 12. Invisible from the outside, reinforced from the inside. No one asked how it was fixed. During the rehearsal dinner, I overheard Colleen at the bar. These old sewing styles, too fussy. Everything's glued now, you know. No one hand stitches anymore. I touched the inside of my wrist. A thread had left a faint mark there where I'd pulled too tightly. I didn't mention it. When Ellie was born, I offered to help. If you ever need a break, I typed, I'm happy to come by weekends. Just let me know what works for you. 3 hours later, a single bubble appeared on the screen. We already hired a nanny. Ellie doesn't do well with unpredictability. I reread the message 3 times. The word unpredictability stuck. Not scheduling conflicts or too far. Just me. Jason called that week. Don't overthink it. Brittany's just careful. She's careful about people who made her baby shower cake by hand. She prefers structure. She prefers me not there. She's not being malicious. It's just not her style. That's how they excused it. A preference. A style. Like changing the color of a wall. The first time Ellie called someone grandma, it wasn't me. I saw it in a video Brittany posted a birthday at the zoo. The woman she hugged was Colleen. Grandma got you the giraffe balloon who loves you more than grandma. The comment had 300 likes. I couldn't watch it twice. I tried logging into the family album that Jason once shared with me, something called Cloud Nest. It said access restricted. Please contact the account holder. I sent a message. No response. I didn't bring it up again. At Jason's 40th birthday, they played a slideshow on the big screen. Brittany narrated. Her voice came through the speakers, calm and rehearsed. Here's Jason with his first pet turtle, with his fifth-grade teacher, with his first boss, with the woman who kept him organized every day, Brittany, of course, every frame carefully chosen. Colleen made it into 3. I wasn't in any. Not in the hospital photo. Not at graduation. Not in the backyard where I built the swing set myself. When the video ended, people clapped. I looked down at my napkin. A drop of something had fallen onto the fabric champagne, maybe, or from the fruit tart. It bled out slowly, soaking through the edge. Later that night, as we were leaving, I stood behind Brittany near the valet. She turned slightly, her voice low but deliberate. Your scarf's on inside out. I reached up. She was right. The tag was showing. I folded it down and stepped away. I didn't go to Thanksgiving that year. I told them I had a flu. Jason sent a text. Let us know if you want leftovers. I never replied. The truth is, I never wanted to make noise. I used to think being easy to ignore was a kind of gift, like paper you can fold neatly and tuck away. At some point, they stopped unfolding me. The guest list for Ellie's recital was sent by group message. Everyone was copied. Brittany's cousins, her co-workers, even the daycare manager. My name wasn't there. I showed up anyway, thinking maybe it was a mistake. Brittany saw me near the side row. Oh, I thought you were traveling this weekend. I changed plans. Ellie does better without surprises. She won't even see me. I'll just sit back here. It's not about seeing, it's about energy. She walked away before I answered. I left before the curtain opened. Back home, I opened the closet in the spare room. The top shelf had a stack of folded things I hadn't looked at in years. Ellie's first baby blanket crocheted in yellow and white. The yarn had pulled in one corner. I never fixed it. I wasn't sure she'd ever use it again. Beneath it was a book, The Giving Tree. I had written her name in the front flap. To Ellie, for every time you feel too much or not enough. I never gave it to her. I placed it back on the shelf. The next day, I walked into a boutique downtown. Not to shop, just to look. A saleswoman hovered near the scarves. This would suit you. Neutral colors. Very forgiving. Forgiving. I touched the edge. It felt like tissue. No warmth. They're on clearance, she added. I smiled, then left without taking anything. That night, I opened my phone and scrolled through old text threads. Most of them were blank. Some had a single word, thanks. Noted, we'll check. One message caught my eye. From months ago. You don't need to overextend yourself. That time has passed. I don't remember what I'd offered. Maybe rides. Maybe soup. I closed the thread. I used to think that if I made myself small enough, they would find room for me. But they filled the house with their own noise. I was never pushed out. Just, gradually not expected. A forgotten invitation. An unread card. A face omitted from the slideshow. I folded the baby blanket one more time and placed it into a box. I didn't label it. I've learned not to reach for explanations too quickly. Some things aren't meant to be understood in full daylight. The invitation came in a forwarded message. No greeting, no signature. Just an address, a time, and a line. Ellie's turning 6. Family dinner. I stared at the word family for a while. I brought a wrapped book and wore the blue blouse with the uneven hem. I ironed it twice. The scent of starch reminded me of mornings from another life. Jason opened the door with a practiced smile. "You made it," he said as if I had RSVP'd. I hadn't. Inside, Brittany waved from the kitchen, lifting a plastic pitcher with floating lemon slices. "We weren't sure you got the message. I saw it yesterday." "Oh, good. Jason thought you might be traveling again." "I wasn't." She handed me a cup translucent with a rose print. Not glass. Here she added, "I didn't want to risk the good ones with all the kids around. No children in sight." The dining room wall had changed. Where the antique mirror used to hang there was a photo. Large framed, color-corrected. Jason in a button-down Brittany in soft curls. Ellie in the center with a pinwheel. Colleen stood behind them with one hand resting lightly on Brittany's shoulder. No one else. Brittany followed my gaze. "Spring shoot. Colleen's friend does editing for lifestyle blogs. You weren't in town then, right? No one told me it happened." "Oh." She poured a second drink. "Well, it was very last minute. The photo hung straight. Perfectly so." Ellie sat on the floor by the couch with markers and a large sheet of paper folded like an accordion. I walked over and lowered myself next to her. "Is that the whole family?" I asked, pointing to the stick figures. "Mm-hmm," she pointed. "That's Mommy, Daddy, Grandma." She drew a flower beside one of them. I touched the edge of the paper. "Where's me sweetie?" Ellie looked up, eyes round. "Mommy said, 'You're not always here, so I didn't know how to draw you.'" She handed me a brown marker. "You can add you if you want." I didn't. Later, I stepped into the guest bathroom and noticed a stack of folded towels that weren't there before. All beige. All with tags still attached. On the counter was a soap labeled, "For guests only." I washed my hands with water alone. My pin had tilted. The enamel rose was chipped at one petal dull along the edges. I adjusted it by instinct. Jason's voice drifted from the hallway. "Her memory's just inconsistent," he was saying. "Not urgent yet, but Colleen's checking some options." There was a pause. She wouldn't argue. Not if it came from concern. I left the bathroom without flushing. It gave no evidence I'd been there. In the office, the printer hummed. I reached to straighten a pile of papers left askew. The top one caught on my ring, the band from my first anniversary worn thin at the base. The paper slid free. "Early Intervention Report, Cognitive Concerns, S. Holloway." Colleen's signature was on the last page. Subject displays periodic confusion. Reduced attention, potential early signs of decline. Recommendation: supervised asset management and wellness oversight. There was a note pending family discussion. I smoothed the paper and placed it back where it had been. Jason was cutting the cake when I returned. Chocolate ganache, almond sponge, the bakery style I used to order when he was young, though he used to complain it was too rich. "I kept the edge clean just for you," he said, offering a plate with the corner untouched. I looked at the cake. "When did this decision happen?" Jason glanced at Brittany, who kept scrolling on her phone. "It's not a decision, it's a precaution." Brittany didn't look up. "We've all noticed some things. Gaps. Pauses." "What kind of gaps?" Jason sat. "You didn't recognize Ellie's teacher at the recital, remember?" "That was over the phone. I didn't see her. Well, it added up." Colleen appeared in the doorway holding a folder. "This is purely procedural. My mother went through the same thing. By the time anyone acknowledged it, it was too late." Brittany added, "We just want things settled before anything gets worse." I placed the plate down without touching the cake. Colleen stepped closer. "Sandra, I'm not trying to overstep, but sometimes love looks like preparation, and sometimes it looks like paperwork." Jason looked tired. "Mom, no one's trying to hurt you. You just think I can't be trusted anymore." "No one said that." I pulled the corner of the napkin into a point and let it unravel. Colleen moved to hand me a pen. There's no rush. But if you ever want to review the transition options, transition into what A space more attuned to: peace, predictability. Predictability for whom Jason stood. Please don't make this harder than it is. Brittany stood too. We're juggling Ellie's school, the agency mom's housing. This isn't about you, it never is. I reached into my bag and touched the velvet pouch with the key to the beach house, the one no one asked about anymore. I hadn't been in months. The salt air still clung to the zipper. Colleen placed a folder on the buffet. You don't have to decide now, but you're not alone in this. You're loved. I left the folder untouched. Jason followed me to the front porch. Don't take it personally. We're just thinking long term. I see that. We're just trying to take care of things while you're still able to weigh in. While I'm still able. As I stepped outside, a breeze lifted the corner of the doormat. I noticed a faint, faded name, Holloway, stitched into the fabric. Barely legible now. Nearly erased. In the car, I sat with the velvet pouch in my lap. I didn't open it. Just held it. Sometimes they don't push you out. They just stop drawing you in. They used to tell me I was too careful. I ironed curtains. I checked locks twice. I labeled boxes no one would open. I brought the gift in both hands. It wasn't wrapped like the others, just a layer of tissue folded over the corners, secured with ribbon. A cloth book stitched by hand years ago. Jason's name embroidered on the last page in red thread. It had been stored in a drawer lined with cedar, away from dust, light, and time. Wow! Brittany touched the ribbon, didn't lift it. That's nostalgic. Colleen sat at the head of the table. Burgundy blazer hair coiled into a bun, too tight for the weather. She didn't look up. Jason leaned in one arm behind Ellie's chair. Glad you could come, Mom. Let's keep things easy tonight, okay? I nodded. The table was long, too polished. There were name cards. Mine was next to the buffet entrance, directly beneath the vent. Ellie opened gifts between bites of cake. A dollhouse with tiny furniture. Ballet shoes in a satin pouch. A framed photo of her with Brittany and Jason at Yellowstone. She smiled at everything except the cloth book. She set it beside her napkin. It doesn't make noise, she whispered. Brittany walked toward me with a glass on a small tray. Pale yellow, no garnish, just chamomile and a splash of gin. I thought something gentle would be nice. I held the glass, felt the chill. She waited for the first sip. I adjusted the napkin in my lap. The glass stayed full. Ellie wanted everyone to come watch her blow bubbles in the garden. I said I needed to find the bathroom. The glass came with me. In the hallway, I passed Jason's study. Door ajar. Nothing strange. Just the sound of a fan humming and paper rustling as air shifted. I kept walking. When I returned, the table had changed. Colleen stood, one hand gripping the edge of her chair. Her other hand pressed against her chest. I'm fine, she mumbled, though her mouth struggled with the shape of the words. Jason caught her elbow. Sit. You're flushed. Are you too warm? She took one step, then folded onto the carpet. Her knee hit the corner of a low stool. A smear of lipstick marked the edge. Brittany ran forward, not to her mother, but to the table. She looked at my place setting, at the glass, at my hands. I was still holding it. Someone called for an ambulance. Ellie was taken upstairs by the nanny. Jason knelt beside Colleen, speaking fast. Her eyes were glassy. The red in her cheeks had turned to a blotchy purple. I returned the glass to the table, untouched. Not a smudge on the rim. That wasn't mine. No one responded. The silence hovered, clinging to the chandelier. Brittany didn't blink. Her fingers fidgeted at her necklace, the one Jason gave her after the merger. A paramedic arrived. then two more. They moved around the house like they'd been there before. She said it was just chamomile, Jason repeated. Maybe she's allergic. I wasn't asked anything. I wasn't offered a ride. I stood by the door jacket over my arm-cloth book, still untouched. As I stepped outside, I heard a small voice from the hallway upstairs. Did Grandma fall? No, sweetie. She's just tired. Go to sleep. It was the first time I heard Brittany's voice without a lilt. At home, I placed the ribbon on the counter. The glass had left a faint circle on my sleeve. I didn't try to wipe it. Later, I pulled out the envelope from the folder marked legal. It contained the revised healthcare proxy Jason had emailed months ago. Colleen's name was listed second. Brittany's was first. Mine was not on the list. There was a pen mark on the signature line. It wasn't my handwriting. I read it twice. Then once more aloud. The sound didn't belong to me. I thought about the glass, its weight in my hand, the way it didn't fog even when I held it for minutes. I thought about how Brittany's smile didn't reach her eyes when she handed it to me. How she watched my mouth, not my face. I thought about how Colleen had sat down before the bubbles had leaned over to sip, had picked up the nearest glass without checking the rim. The glass I hadn't touched. No one mentioned it later. No calls, no messages. Just a photo on Brittany's feed of Ellie in a tutu holding her new doll. The caption read, "Grateful for family and new memories." There were no likes from Jason's colleagues, only from the nanny and Colleen. I printed the photo and slipped it between the pages of the cloth book. The thread had frayed slightly. I didn't restitch it. There was a smell to the ribbon, faint, like something herbal but wrong. I placed it in a sealed pouch, not for proof, just to remember the texture. I kept the napkin too, pressed it flat, folded once. It had a light crease where my hand had rested during the meal. At night, I heard a voice. Not mine, not Brittany's. My mother's. If they bring you something you didn't ask for, look at their hands, not the tray. I hadn't thought about her in years. She used to stir sugar into tea after guests left quietly, with her back to the room. She never finished her cup. I stared at the ribbon. I didn't drink that glass. And I didn't need to. It's strange what silence weighs. Not heavy like grief, not sharp like guilt. Just something constant. Something that sits behind your ribs and doesn't move. No one called after that night. 4 days passed without a single word. No one mentioned the ambulance. No one mentioned the glass. Jason's name lit up on my phone twice, but he left nothing behind. No voicemail, not even a breath. Just 2 missed calls with nothing to say. I went back quietly. Not to demand anything, just to collect what hadn't yet been erased. The front gate opened the same way it always had. That click used to feel like a welcome. Now it reminded me of a filing cabinet shutting. I parked on the street and carried an empty laundry basket, the kind I used to take home with socks, still inside from Jason's childhood. Inside, the house was empty. Or it felt that way. The rooms had that after-party smell, flowers too sweet wine that had dried into the napkins. My hands moved without needing instruction. I picked up the framed photos I'd given them last Christmas. The one of Ellie holding the seashell. The one of Jason in his college sweater, even though he dropped out 2 months later. 2 porcelain teacups I'd brought back from Charleston went in the basket next. The matching saucers were already gone. I didn't go into the living room. I didn't open drawers. I took only the things that had fingerprints of mine. Upstairs, I slid open the hallway closet. A stack of old albums leaned against a broken vacuum. The one on top still had the silver sticker from the hospital on the cover. Jason Richard Holloway, Jan, 1985. I lifted it. A few pages stuck together. The carpet creaked behind me. "You're not even going to knock?" Brittany stood by the banister, arms folded. Her tone wasn't angry. She looked at the basket, not at me. "Are you going to say anything?" I closed the album. Let my fingers flatten the edge where it curled. "Are you—" She blinked but didn't answer. Her hair was too perfect for a woman who'd watched her mother collapse 4 nights ago. I walked past her carrying the basket in both arms. My wedding ring, long unworn, sat in my coat pocket. I felt it shift with every step. In the kitchen, I left a letter on the table. No threats, no accusations. Just a folded photograph of the sonogram from 39 years ago creased at the corner. On the back, I'd written, "When I carried you, I never imagined I'd need to prove I deserved to exist." I didn't knock on Jason's door. I didn't ask where he was. The file folder in my handbag pressed against my hip. Property records, not copies of wills, not demands, just a timeline, dates, signatures, notarizations. Quiet handwriting proving when my name disappeared. I wasn't going to show it. I just needed to know I wasn't imagining it. On the way out, I took the side path, the one that curved behind the garage. That's where I saw her. Ellie sat cross-legged on a patch of artificial turf, a tiara tilted on her head. She held a fork, stabbing a piece of chocolate cake on a pink paper plate. She looked up. "Grandma, you're not staying for cake?" I crouched to her level, straightened her tiara, then touched the frosting at the corner of her mouth with a tissue from my sleeve. I already had mine, I told her. A long time ago. Her eyes stayed on me a second too long. I think she knew this wasn't a regular goodbye. The clouds moved, but the wind didn't. My car door made a softer sound when I shut it. No one followed me. No one shouted down the driveway. And no one called later that night. On the kitchen table at home, I placed the laundry basket. One of the teacups had chipped in the car. I left it that way. I made myself a cup of peppermint tea. Didn't sweeten it. Didn't warm my hands with it. Just watched the steam curve away and disappear. I didn't look at the envelope again. I folded the hospital photo into the back of the drawer where I kept warranties, the kind of drawer no one goes into unless something breaks. There were no words left to mail. No numbers I needed to block. I deleted Jason's contact not because I couldn't find him, but because I already had. The thing no one tells you about disappearing is that it doesn't always mean running. Sometimes it means becoming so quiet that the noise finally stops responding. You stop asking, and the silence stops pretending to be temporary. I didn't wait for an apology, didn't write one last message. No one stopped me. No one walked me out. And that was the loudest answer I ever got. I've never liked the sound of zippers. They always feel rushed, like something is leaving too quickly or arriving uninvited. The room I rent is up a narrow staircase that creaks in 2 places, both on the left side. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't leave a forwarding address. The key hangs on a plain metal hook by the door, and the bed has no headboard. I brought the album with Jason's baby pictures. Not the glossy one, the first one. The one with the fabric cover that's faded at the corners. The one with the note tucked in the back, ultrasound, March 1985. The handwriting looks steadier than mine does now. Next to it on the dresser is the glass Brittany handed me once. I haven't washed it. I haven't touched it. The lip mark is still there. I look at it some mornings as if something about the shape of it might finally answer a question I haven't been able to name. No one has called. Jason let 2 missed calls ring out before giving up, but no message followed. Not even a question mark. The woman at the leasing office never asked why I chose this unit. She just handed me the lease, pointed to where I should initial, and left me with a blank space and a pen that had someone else's name on it. There's a cabinet here with 1 drawer that sticks. I put everything inside the legal copies, the asset transfer paperwork, notarized forms, even the photo I took of the letter with my name scratched out in red. I keep it locked with a key I wear on a thin cord around my neck. I found a strip of masking tape and pressed it to the wood. I wrote, "The truth doesn't knock, it waits." On the wall, I tacked up a picture of Thomas from our 25th anniversary. He was wearing the same tie he wore to Jason's high school graduation. I only noticed that detail recently when I looked closer. I must have missed it before thinking the day itself was the meaning. A line from someone's voice keeps circling, not a sentence, just the tone of it. "You're not part of this anymore." That wasn't said to me, but it was meant for me. I've learned the difference. There's a small cafe across the street. No one knows my name there. They smile when I walk in, and that's enough. On the second night, I opened the small black notebook I brought and wrote one line. If they think silence is surrender, they've never seen a woman prepare in silence. No flourish, just that. The lamp in this room casts a yellow shadow. It's not flattering, but it doesn't lie. I see everything now. Creases, loose threads, a faint stain where I once dropped tea. I don't scrub it out. Some things belong. The first night I left, the window cracked. I didn't need pills. I didn't wake up sweating or clutching for something that wasn't there. In the morning, I steeped a single tea bag in the chipped mug that used to be Jason's. I sipped it slowly. Nothing shook. The spoon stayed where I left it. The only sound that startled me came from a knock I wasn't expecting. I opened the door halfway. It was the property manager with a clipboard. She glanced past me. "You here alone?" I nodded. "Quiet one, huh?" She scribbled something. "Don't cause trouble. You can stay as long as you want." I didn't answer. She didn't wait. On the table by the door, I placed one of the ivory envelopes I never sent. It's addressed to no one now. Just initials that don't belong to me anymore. The last thing I unpacked was the box with the embroidered bib Jason wore once before he could sit up. The stitching had come loose on one side. I pinned it to the corkboard with a thumbtack and didn't adjust it when it hung crooked. I tried calling Colleen's room at the hospital once. The nurse said she wasn't taking visitors. "Family only," she added. I didn't correct her. I just hung up. At some point during the week, a letter arrived with my old last name misspelled. Marketing mail. I dropped it into the trash without opening it. Let them guess who lives here. I saw Brittany again, but not in person. She was on the news. Some charity board gala. Her dress had sleeves too long for her arms. The caption said, "Brittany Hale Holloway, community advocate." I watched her smile at someone off camera, then turned the volume down. I didn't need to hear it. I've started labeling things in the room not with names, just notes. Remember this. Don't trust the second glance. Leave as you came. There's a mirror across from the bed. I don't look into it often. When I do, I look just past it, at the edge of the reflection. At the space where a person begins, but hasn't fully arrived yet. Today, I walked by the lake. No one waved. A child ran past with a balloon tied to their wrist. The string tangled for a second around their arm before slipping off. They kept running. The balloon didn't. A man on a bench looked up from his newspaper. I didn't stop walking. Inside my drawer, there's a folded copy of a document that still bears my name, one they couldn't edit. One that's filed and recorded time-stamped. It doesn't shout. It just waits. I drink from a different cup now, a plain one. No fingerprints, no lipstick, no accusations sealed in sugar. It doesn't look like much. But it's mine. No one knows I'm here. But I do. And next time they look for me, they won't recognize what they find. I don't think people realize how loud silence becomes once you've stopped waiting for it to end. Jason's message arrived at 9:42 a.m. I read it without blinking. "Hi, Mom. Just wondering how you're doing. Ellie misses you. Brittany's asking if you want to drop by this weekend." I didn't answer. The screen dimmed on its own. I didn't wake it up again. 3 days later, Brittany's name appeared not from her personal account, but her office email. The subject line read, "Legacy Consent Forms Ellie's School." No greeting, just the words. "We're finalizing Ellie's school paperwork. They ask for grandparents' consent forms regarding legacy donations. Could you look over some forms?" Attached was a PDF file. Page 4 had highlighted text, "Indicate grandparents' estate pledges, if applicable." The next call came from Franklin Pierce, my attorney. He didn't ask how I was either. Jason inquired about the Holloway Memorial Trust. "I have reason to believe they're concerned you might be preparing to transfer ownership." I put the phone down on the counter. I'd been slicing an apple, one of those green ones that turns brown too fast. The knife rested beside it. I didn't finish. Later that evening, an envelope arrived by courier. No return address, just my name in tall lettering. Inside, a cream-colored card embossed with fake gold, "Colleen and Raymond celebrate the renewal of vows, 30 years strong. Hosted at Holloway Residence. Press and partners welcome. Kindly RSVP." The initials at the bottom, BHH. I folded it once, then again, until the paper refused to stay shut. They had found their way back not through the door I left open, but through one I locked long ago. Another email came that night. This one not meant for me. Sandra to finalize transfer. Disbursement expected Q3. Attach legal doc draft once notarized. It was signed accidentally, or not, Brittany H. Holloway. The tone was polished, detached, surgical. That same evening, I received a text with an image attached. It was a drawing crayon, lines uneven and bright. A house, a sun, 2 stick figures, and a dog with no legs. In the corner, a woman holding a tray of cookies. The caption in uneven letters, "Grandma." But underneath, in pencil, "Colleen." The message said, "Ellie wanted you to see her new art." I stared at the picture longer than I meant to. I remembered another drawing years ago taped to our refrigerator with a crooked magnet Jason had drawn me as a superhero. The letters were misspelled, but the cape was unmistakable. Now I was just an empty outline. Or maybe I wasn't there at all. The next morning, I walked to the post office and mailed a letter. No return address. Inside was a small black and white ultrasound printout. Jason at 12 weeks. On the back, I wrote, "When I carried you, I never imagined I'd have to prove I deserved to exist." I signed nothing. Later that week, I saw a missed call from a number I didn't save, but I recognized the area code. I didn't return it. I opened my storage box and removed the deed to the Holloway residence, still with my name on the title barely, but still. I laid it next to the medical proxy form from 3 years ago. The signature at the bottom wasn't mine. Next to them, I placed the coffee-stained envelope Brittany once used to send over a brunch menu. On the flap, she had written, "Don't forget to RSVP, appearances matter." I remembered the way she handed it to me like I was her secretary. A few days passed. Then another message came, "Would love to have you over for dinner. Ellie's asking about her quilt. Thought we could all talk through some next steps." There was no mention of the glass, no mention of the hospital, no mention of Colleen, just a request for quiet compliance disguised as reunion. I opened the drawer where I kept an old silver necklace. Not valuable, just worn the clasp, rusted slightly from time. It had been a birthday gift from Jason, bought with his own allowance when he was 8. He didn't remember giving it to me. I still remembered how he tried to wrap it with Scotch tape. I wore it the next day. Not because of the memory, but because I wanted to remember who I used to be before all the titles they gave me, Mother Burden Ghost. I sat down and read their messages one last time. I didn't delete them. I didn't reply. I moved them into a folder named Documented. Not for anger, not for revenge, just for record. In another world, maybe I would have gone to that vow renewal. Maybe I would have watched them smile for the cameras and hold hands as if no one ever tried to erase me. Maybe I would have smiled back. But in this world, I made tea in the same chipped mug I brought from the old house. The one that never matched the rest of the set. The one Jason once dropped but never broke. I held it with both hands. They didn't come back for me. They came back for the signature that still had weight. For the line on a trust document that hadn't yet been rewritten, for the appearance of wholeness, but not for the person they left behind, not for the mother whose name they stopped using, not for the woman they didn't think would remember, not for me. And still I remember everything. I no longer wait for people to become who they promised they were. The clipboard rested on the table beside a chipped bowl of mints. I hadn't meant to take the last one, but it stayed there all morning, dissolving slowly under my tongue. A volunteer named Nina handed me a new badge, just S. Holloway, printed in black on white plastic. The corners weren't rounded. The tape they used to attach it peeled on one side. Behind me, a man fumbled with the printer again, muttering about toner. Across the room, someone clapped after finishing a form for rental assistance. I pointed to the line where they'd missed a signature. No one asked what I did before this. I hadn't told anyone I used to host Thanksgiving dinners with linen napkins folded like swans. That my name once appeared in the donor list of Holloway Medical Pavilion. That I used to fix Jason's shirt cuffs with mother-of-pearl buttons when he was too nervous to tie them himself. Now I helped seniors write disability appeal letters. I laminated recipe cards for meals that didn't require teeth. I taught someone how to hard-boil an egg without exploding it on an induction stove. "Why don't they teach this stuff earlier?" a woman muttered, holding up her first uncracked egg. Her sleeves were rolled with precision, like my sister used to do before sewing. I gave a nod and moved on. There was a camera crew last Friday. Small station, local segment about resilience in older adults. They wanted a soundbite. I told them I didn't overcome anything, I just kept walking. There's a difference. They cut that line from the segment. When the man in the wrinkled blue shirt stepped into the doorway, I didn't need to squint. Jason's shoulders still curved inward when he held documents. The folder was too clean to be casual. I thought maybe we could talk. Brittany said it's time we settle things. He didn't say my name. He didn't look down at my hands. There was a small, round sticker still stuck to his pant leg. Ellie's name was written in blue marker. It looked recent. I folded the last form on the table, slid it into the box with the rest, and stood up without motioning for him to follow. I don't sit with people who've drugged my glass without an apology. He blinked. I didn't know you didn't ask. I turned the badge over in my palm. The tape had come loose again. He stared at it as if reading the letters might unlock something forgotten. Ellie misses you. She should be told the truth about names. He shifted. His shoes weren't polished. His socks didn't match. I wondered if Brittany had stopped choosing them for him. "We're trying to get things right now." I glanced toward the hallway, where the printer still beeped low. No one interrupted. "Then start with what you broke." He didn't have anything else to say. Not anything worth remembering. After he left, I wrote a list in my notebook bank. Authorization revoked property, retitled Guardian Power, removed trust oversight, reassigned to Pierce Law. I boxed the documents and slid the folder onto the shelf below the tea canisters. I hadn't needed sleeping pills in weeks. That morning, Clara from the pantry handed me a small clay pot wrapped in newspaper. A mint plant, bright overgrown, smelling like cool air, and unfinished thoughts. "Name it," she said. "Every good plant needs a name." I peeled the paper back slowly. The roots had overreached the pot. I broke some soil free and planted it again in the ceramic one I used to keep loose change in. "Silence," I said. "Her name's Silence." The leaves steadied as the sun caught the windowsill. I placed the pot beside the glass tumbler Brittany had handed me long ago. It stayed there, not rinsed, not reused. In the same drawer, I kept a copy of a notarized letter all financial authority formally removed from Jason Holloway, all estate and hospital permissions now managed by third-party trust. Signed, dated, filed. When Brittany's email arrived subject line request for clarification, it attached another spreadsheet. I didn't open it. The preview text was enough. Pending Mrs. Holloway's asset release projected quarterly liquidity. They still used Mrs. Informal headers, but never in person. Later that week, a card arrived in the mail cream-colored gold trim. Colleen and Andrew. Reaffirm their vows. Please join us in celebration of love and resilience. The venue listed was the same address where I once held Jason's 8th birthday party. I remembered ordering a magician, the kind with a dove in a velvet hat. The RSVP section said Holloway family strongly encouraged to attend media present. The envelope was addressed in printed font. No handwriting. I didn't tear it. I didn't keep it. I placed it beneath the mint pot. Someone once told me people show you who they are and what they assume you'll tolerate. There's a drawer in my kitchen where I used to keep aprons. Now it holds notarized copies, keys to boxes, backup drives, each labeled. I carry no revenge in that drawer, only proof. They haven't apologized. They haven't asked where I live. They haven't looked at what they left behind. I don't expect them to. The plant needs trimming again soon. I'll keep the clippings in a small envelope and dry them on the sill. Maybe I'll label the envelope too, something like proof that even quiet things grow back and remember. I used to think names were just labels, things given at birth passed down sewn into documents printed on envelopes. I didn't realize how heavy they could be until mine started to feel borrowed. The letterhead was thick, the kind that curled slightly at the corners. Franklin slid it across the desk with one finger. I didn't reach for it. I already knew what it said. My signature was waiting beneath blank lines and small print. No one really reads, but everyone signs. I had practiced the new version of my name the night before, writing it slowly in the corner of a recipe card until it felt like mine again. He cleared his throat, perhaps hoping I'd say something. I didn't. The only sound was the clock behind him and the slight click of his pen when it settled beside the file. The first name removed was Jason's. Below it, Brittany's. Not crossed out, but gone entirely, as if they were never there. In their place, the trust was assigned to a shelter I once found, taped with flyers on a grocery store window. Their mission fit the silence I had carried for years: support for women recovering from emotional manipulation. Next was the community center. I had initialed a memo dedicating funds to the repairs in the kitchen, the small sewing room, and the front step ramp where Mrs. Camilla always caught her heel. I included notes for each as if I were still on staff. Finally, Ellie's trust. It sat in a sealed clause at the back, layered, untouchable, guarded. No one could manage or access it but her. Not even if she lost everything else. Especially not then. I opened the small wooden box in my lap and placed a folded letter inside. 5 pages, written in the slow afternoons between coffee and dusk. The last line read, You are not what they say you are. You are what you keep alive. Franklin looked at the envelope. To be delivered when she turns 18, I'd said earlier. He nodded, gently closing the lid. Jason's number was still in my phone. I hadn't deleted it, not out of habit, just indifference. When I called, I heard the start of his voice, but I didn't wait. I know you signed the guardianship motion that week. I also know the tea at Ellie's party wasn't a mistake. I paused, not for effect, only to breathe. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. Because I'm done carrying your name. The silence on the other end was the same as always. Long, polite, and empty. Later, I stood at the clerk's office counter and slid a form under the glass. The woman scanned it without looking up. You're changing back to coal, she said, more observation than question. I nodded. She didn't ask why. Maybe she'd seen the same decision made by other women with worn purses and quiet hands. I left with a receipt and a temporary ID bearing the name I hadn't used since 19. The picture looked like someone who'd walked too far to care how she appeared at the finish line. I kept it in my wallet behind my Medicare card. At home, I placed the box with Ellie's letter on the top shelf of my closet beside a pair of gloves I hadn't worn in decades. There was no ceremony to it, no music or tears, just emotion as light as tucking away winter linen. That week, a copy of the final documents arrived by mail. I opened them at the kitchen table. A brown ring from my mug darkened one corner. I didn't move it. Stains felt more honest than signatures. Jason didn't write. Brittany didn't call. But I received a notice through Franklin from their lawyer, thinly veiled, full of neutral language. Something about concerns over fairness. It ended with our clients are surprised by the exclusion and hope to maintain lines of communication. I folded the letter twice and used it to level a wobbly leg on the old cabinet near the pantry. A neighbor asked me at the market, "Don't you miss them, though?" I mean, they're still your family. I held up a can of tomato paste, comparing labels. Family isn't always blood, she added, eyes waiting. They were never missing, I replied, just standing behind the curtain, waiting for their cue. She didn't speak again. At the community center, I sat through a finance committee meeting without taking notes. I watched a younger volunteer mark figures on a whiteboard. Her handwriting was firm, deliberate. I remembered writing like that once. During a break, she turned and said, "It's good they have someone like you. Someone who knows when things are about to fall through the cracks." I folded a paper napkin twice and placed it under my water glass. The cracks show you where not to step again. At night, I folded the last of the documents into a fireproof envelope. I placed it in the drawer under the stove beside an old photograph of my mother wearing an apron she sewed from curtain scraps. Her fingers were stained with ink in the picture, and she looked straight at the lens. That was before anyone told her who she was allowed to be. The next morning, I replaced the nameplate on my mailbox. The old one, metal and flaking, had said S. Holloway in uneven block letters. I kept it in a drawer, not out of nostalgia, but in case anyone ever doubted the version I'd let go of. I didn't attend the next Holloway gathering. The invitation came with gold foil and cursive. I opened it with kitchen scissors and placed it in the compost bin. On my windowsill, the mint plant had grown sideways, reaching toward the glass. I trimmed a sprig and placed it on the counter. The scent lingered longer than expected. I didn't announce the name change. I didn't post about the new will. I didn't visit the family lawyer's office again. Some things don't need to be declared to be real. I left their world without keys, without suitcases, without goodbye. But I took with me the one thing they never thought I'd keep: the truth. I never used to finish books. I would dog-ear pages, promise myself I'd return, then tuck them behind recipe binders or magazine stacks. Now I read them twice, sometimes 3 times. The kettle clicked off on its own. I didn't rush to pour. Steam curled out the spout like breath that didn't need a reply. On the counter, the chamomile box was nearly empty. I used to avoid that flavor, too bland, too quiet. Lately, I reached for it first. The cup I chose had a faint crack near the rim. Not enough to leak, just enough to remind me not to grip too hard. I wore the gray cardigan again. The one with the thread loosened at the wrist. It didn't match anything. I wore it anyway. Outside, the park was soft, with rust-colored trees, but I didn't open the window. I let the light filter through without catching it. The mint plant stretched past the edge of its pot. A slip of paper faded, and curling was still stuck to the side. In black ink, I had written one word months ago: silence. The box on the shelf was always hard to open in the morning. Something about the way the wood swelled overnight. Inside were the things I hadn't tried to explain: black and white photographs, an envelope with no stamp, a silver spoon that no longer gleamed, and the duplicate copy of a will that no one could contest now. The spoon was mine. First thing I bought for myself that wasn't food or rent. I remember the man behind the counter said, "Kind of small for a gift, isn't it?" I had answered with exact change. The doorbell rang once. No knock. Just a small, square package on the mat. Brown paper, no return label. Inside, crayon colors, uneven lines, a sun that took up half the page. A drawing of 3 people, short legs, round eyes. One was holding something green. The handwriting below was uneven. I told Daddy, "Your plant smells nicer than Mommy's perfume." The name in the corner read LEC. I didn't move for a long time. I let the paper sit beside the tea until the warmth faded. Then I took a piece of masking tape from the drawer and placed the drawing on the wall above the shelf. Next to it, another paper I had pinned weeks ago. It said, "I don't need to be loved. I just need to stay whole." I didn't write that for Ellie. I wrote it for myself. But I left it there. Later, I added a note to the calendar, pinned behind the fridge: Tuesday volunteer, 6:00 p.m. No alarm. No reminder. Just ink. An email blinked in on the laptop. From the women's shelter. "We can cover transportation if needed. Do you require anything for the session?" I typed. Slowly. "No payment necessary. I can teach Tuesdays." Then I closed the lid. On the table, the book lay open. Thick hardbound borrowed from the center's small library. The title read, "Sometimes Silence is the Strongest Will." No one had checked it out before me. The slip inside was blank. I left it that way. I made another cup of tea. Not because I wanted more, just because I could. I sat with it. The mint leaves outside tilted toward the railing. The plant had outgrown its label. I let it keep the name anyway. My phone buzzed once. Not a number I saved. I didn't look. The last voicemail I kept was from someone at the bank, confirming the final transfer of funds to Ellie's trust. Her voice had been careful, professional. No curiosity in her tone. That's how I knew she understood. In the bedroom, the closet was mostly empty now. Just a few things folded neatly, clothes that didn't fit anyone's taste, but mine. I left the hangers in not because I planned to fill them, but because empty things don't have to be sad. There was a letter under the pillow I hadn't mailed. Just a few lines. No signature, no name. I'd written it the night I changed the locks, even though no one had tried to come in. In the hallway, a neighbor asked once, "Your family visit?" Often I'd replied, "They used to." She'd nodded like that meant something. Then, "You seem very calm." I looked at my hands and said, "I stopped waiting for applause." I didn't bake anymore, but I still kept cinnamon in the cabinet, just in case. I hadn't returned to the house by the shore. I didn't need to. It existed still in paperwork and property lines. But it didn't breathe the same way. Sometimes I imagined the sound of that old wind chime outside the porch. Not for comfort. just to test if memory had faded. It hadn't. I never opened the voicemail Jason left. Not because I feared it, but because silence is sometimes louder than an apology. The pen beside the will had a broken clip. I still used it. The wall beside the window was bare except for Ellie's drawing. She had drawn my cardigan as bright blue. It wasn't, but I left it. In the dream I had last week, someone asked me where my family was. I pointed to the plant. The woman in the dream didn't ask again. I poured the rest of the tea into the sink. The crack in the cup had widened slightly. I placed it gently back on the shelf away from the others. I stood for a while by the window, not watching anything, just standing. A plane passed overhead. I didn't look up. And I thought I am living. No need to prove it.